Welcome to the deep dive, where we take these incredibly detailed, sometimes dense instructions and turn them into something you can actually use. And today we are going deep, really deep.
We are. We're getting into the official rulebook for the Department of the Air Force, the DAF.
That's right. We're looking at the core of military protocol, pulling from the latest official documents, things like DAFIA 90-1201 and DAF PAM 34-1203.
And this isn't just about, general good manners. This is a system. It's a completely codified way of life that dictates everything from who salutes who to how you're allowed to pay for a dinner.
To the exact meaning behind a single empty chair at a table.
Exactly. The level of detail is, well, it's something else.
It really is. I mean, we're talking about regulations that demand you follow every single attachment, every rule, down to the fraction of an inch on a flag. And my big takeaway from this is that protocol is not optional. It is an instruction.
It is. You follow the procedure, period. Unless you go through the whole formal process of getting a waiver up to your chain of command.
Yep. And it's important to know that this guidance we're diving into, especially the October 2024 version of the DeFi, it now fully brings in the U.S. Space Force.
Yes, their customs, their courtesies, they're all right there, side by side with the Air Force traditions. It's one unified doctrine now for the whole DAF.
So our mission today is to give you the ultimate shortcut. We're going to unpack these procedures and show you that protocol isn't just about being polite. It's the foundational system. It's what creates order, professionalism, and respect in both the Air Force and the Space Force.
Okay, so let's start with the most visible part of all of this, the flags. The colors. It seems simple, right? It's just a flag.
You would think so. But the rules for the U.S. flag are incredibly specific, and they're not just D5 rules, they're rooting in federal law. Title IV, U.S. Code.
And the first thing that jumps out is that you absolutely cannot use the flag for decoration.
Zero tolerance on that. The idea is to protect the flag's dignity. It's a symbol, not a party decoration. The sources are very clear. It must never be festooned. Festooned. That's a great word. What does it mean in this context?
It means you can't drape it in folds or swags. You can't draw it back like a curtain. And you definitely can't drape it over the front of a podium or a speaker's lectern. The flag has to hang freely. Always.
So all those pictures you see, at big events or in movies where the flag is a backdrop, all pulled up in these fancy folds, that's actually not allowed.
Not according to federal law and DAF instruction, no. And it goes even further. You can't use any part of the flag for advertising. You can't print it on things that are meant to be thrown away.
Like paper napkins or boxes.
Exactly. Paper napkins, cups, anything temporary.
But there's a little bit of a carve out there, right? For keepsakes.
There is, and it's an important distinction. The flag can be printed on things meant to be kept permanently.
Yeah.
Think formal invitations, nice event programs, commemorative plaques. It's all about permanence versus being disposable.
And the DF really underscores that this isn't just a suggestion. They cite the U.S. Code on penalties for desecration. This applies to everyone on an installation.
Everyone. Military members, their families, civilian visitors. It's a federal mandate.
Okay, so let's move from how you display it to the flags themselves. They come in very specific sizes.
Oh, absolutely. Precision is everything. For just a normal day on an installation in the U.S., what they call CONIS, you'll fly the installation flag.
And that one is, what, about 8 by 12 feet?
Either 8 by 12 feet or, in some cases, a slightly bigger one, just under 9 by 17 feet.
And then there's the really big one, the one that you can't miss.
That's the garrison flag. That thing is massive, 20 by 38 feet.
Wow.
Yeah. It's reserved for special holidays and big ceremonies. It's designed to be a statement. When you see a flag that size, it's a very clear, very visible symbol of military authority.
And on the other end of the scale,
you have the interment flag. That one's used only for burial services, and it's smaller, about 5 by 9.5 feet.
The location of the flagpole also matters, doesn't it? There's a sort of visual hierarchy.
A very intentional one. On an installation, the biggest flag, the installation flag, is flown at the main headquarters. If you have other flagpoles on base, say at a wing headquarters or something,
They have to fly a smaller flag.
they have to. Usually an all-purpose flag. The rule is there, so there's no confusion. The biggest flag always marks the central command.
Okay, so what about when you have a group of flags together? This is where the rules of precedence get really, really specific.
Down to the little decorative tops on the poles, the finials.
Really?
Yep. The number one rule is if all the flags are in a line at the same height, the U.S. flag is always at its own right. So for you, the observer, it's the flag on the far left.
And all the little tops have to match.
All the finials have to be the same style. It's about visual parity. No flag should look more important than another in that line.
Is there ever a time the U.S. flag can be in the center?
Only one. It can be in the center of a line of flags if and only if it's also displayed higher than all the others. That's the only way to center it while still showing its position of honor.
And for international displays, like say you're hosting delegates from other countries, that has to be incredibly sensitive.
Very sensitive, and the rule is about equality. Flags of 2 or more nations must be on separate flagpoles at the exact same height, and the flags themselves have to be the same size.
You can't have one bigger or higher than another?
Never in peacetime. It would be seen as a slight. And if the U.S. is the host, the order is simple.
Alphabetical.
Alphabetical. By the country's official short form name in English. Canada before France, France before the United Kingdom, and so on.
Okay, let's move on to the DAF's own flags, the organizational colors, the USAF and USSF service flags. There's this interesting courtesy called dipping.
Right, and dipping is a huge distinction. The U.S. flag is never dipped for any person or anything, but organizational colors are.
When would they be dipped?
They're dipped when the national anthem is played, or a foreign national anthem,
Right.
and they're also dipped to render honors to the top brass. We're talking the Secretary of the Air Force, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, the Chief of Space Operations.
So the highest levels of leadership.
Highest levels. And equivalent government officials or foreign dignitaries. It's a specific high-level courtesy.
Then you have guidons. Those are for the squadrons.
Exactly. Guidons are the swallow-tailed flags that represent a squadron. They're used in ceremonies. And a little detail here, the lettering on a guidon has to be readable from left to right on both sides.
So it doesn't matter which way the wind is blowing.
That's the idea. Wings and higher commands use organizational flags, but the guidon is really the symbol of the squadron.
And finally, the flag in its most somber role in mourning. The rules for draping a casket are precise.
Extremely. On a closed casket, the Union, the Field of Stars, has to be at the head and over the deceased's left shoulder. That placement is absolute. And the flag must never be lowered into the grave or touch the ground, ever.
The rules for flying the flag at half-staff also seem to vary quite a bit.
They do, and it's based on who has passed away. For, Secretary of Defense or Service Secretary, flags go to half-staff until the burial, or for 7 days, whichever is shorter.
But for a local commander?
Right. For a current active DAF commander who dies, say an installation commander, the SecAF, or their immediate commander, directs it. And it's only over designated buildings on that installation, again, until interment, or 7 days. It's a way to show formal respect for a local loss, but keeping it within the right scope.
Okay, so if flags are the visual language, then precedents and courtesies are the social language. It's the code for how everyone interacts.
And it has to be a code, because you have this complex mix of people. Military ranks, civilian leaders, foreign visitors, people from different branches.
We can't just rely on who's been in longer.
Exactly. You need a clear system to avoid any confusion or, worse, an unintentional insult. The president sets the ranking for U.S. officials, and the State Department handles it for foreign representatives.
And a key point here is that your position often matters more than your date of rank.
Positional seniority is critical, especially in a joint environment. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, for example, is senior to all other officers, period. Then the vice chair, then the service chiefs.
And the service chiefs are ranked by when they were appointed.
By their appointment date,
Yeah.
right. With the Coast Guard commandant always coming last in that group. And for combatant commanders, it's based on the date they took command.
That makes sense. It's about who's in charge of the operation right now. But let's get into a really interesting one. The difference between being frocked and just being on a promotion list.
Frocking. This creates a very unique social situation. An officer who is frocked gets to wear the rank of the next higher grade.
So they look like a general, even if they're still technically a colonel.
Right. They get all the honors and courtesies of that higher rank.
Yeah.
But not the pay.
Not the pay. That's the catch.
That's the catch. And in terms of precedence, that frocked officer now outranks all the other officers in their actual pay grade.
So a frocked brigadier general outranks all the colonels.
Yes. But they are still junior to anyone who actually holds the commissioned rank of brigadier general. It's a temporary step up to give them the authority they need for a new job.
That must be a strange place to be, all the responsibility, but not quite all the benefits.
It is. Now, that's different from someone who's just on an approved promotion list.
Mm-hmm.
If you're on the list, but not yet frocked, you still wear your current rank, and that's the precedence you get.
And the rules are very specific, right? You can't put Brigadier General Select on a name tag or anything.
No, absolutely not. You are referred to by the rank you currently hold.
Okay, let's talk about the physical stuff. Saluting. The basic rule is simple.
The junior member always salutes first. That's the bedrock of military courtesy. And it's required outdoors when you recognize an officer or warrant officer.
But indoors is where everyone gets confused. There are very few times you actually salute indoors.
Right. In general, you don't salute inside. But there are 3 big exceptions.
Okay, what are they?
1, when you're formally reporting to a senior officer. 2, during a formal presentation, like if you're receiving an award. And 3, during an informal recognition, maybe a commander is giving you a coin. That's it.
And otherwise, if a senior officer walks into a room,
You show respect by standing at attention. Or, if you are sitting, you just stand up. It's that simple, non-verbal acknowledgement of their position.
which connects right into the position of honor.
Yes, the position of honor is always the right side. Always. So juniors walk or ride to the left of seniors.
And in a car.
The position of honor is the back seat on the right side.
Okay, but getting in and out of vehicles, especially aircraft, seems to run counter to what you'd expect in the civilian world.
It does. It's all about making sure the senior officer is taken care of. So officers get on a plane in inverse order of rank. Junior folks get on first.
And they get off in order of rank, so the senior officer is the first one off.
Exactly. They are the last aboard and the first to leave. It means they're never kept waiting.
And what if it's an aircraft assigned to a general or something?
Then it's even more strict. The junior personnel have to be on board and seated before the senior officer even arrives. And they stay seated until that senior officer has departed at the destination. No rushing the exit.
Before we move on, let's touch on Medal of Honor recipients. Is it true you have to salute them no matter their rank?
That's a very common belief, but it's not actually in the regulations. The instruction is clear. There is no law that requires you to salute an MOH recipient unless they are senior to you in rank.
But people do it anyway.
They do. It has become a powerful custom, a voluntary sign of profound respect for the act of heroism the medal represents. It's about honoring the medal itself.
Okay, anthems and calls. For the Star-Spangled Banner, what's the rule at DA ceremonies?
It's very precise. Only the first verse is authorized when the colors are presented, and you cannot substitute it with another patriotic song.
So no, God bless America.
No. The rule is there to keep the ceremony solemn and, frankly, brief.
And the courtesies required are also strict.
For military in uniform, you salute from the first note to the last. For veterans in civilian clothes, they now have the option to render a hand salute. And for other civilians, you stand, remove your hat, and place your right hand over your heart.
What if it's a foreign national anthem?
U.S. military members render the exact same courtesies as they would for our own anthem. Civilians, however, stand and remove their hats, but they are not required to put their hand over their heart. That's a gesture of allegiance reserved for your own country.
And the daily calls, reveille and retreat. Whether you salute or not depends on the flag, right?
It's all about the flag. If the call is just played to mark the start or end of the day, like on a base where the flag is lit and flies 24 hours, then no courtesies are required. You just go about your business.
But if the flag is actually being raised or lowered?
Then it's different. If the call is a prelude to the anthem or to the colors, and that flag is moving, then all courtesies apply. You stop, you face the flag, and you salute until the last note.
Okay, we've covered the visual and the social codes. Now we get into the business side of things, the logistics, the event management, and the really tricky part, the funding. This is the world of the protocol office.
And the protocol office is, they're the engine behind all of this. They manage every single detail of an official event, reserving the venue, coordinating the AV, the catering, scripting, the whole thing.
They're basically government-funded event planners with an incredible amount of responsibility.
And a huge part of that is guest management. They handle the RSVPs, any payments, booking hotels, greeting distinguished visitors on the flight line, creating seating charts.
The whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards. Place cards, name tags, escorting guests. It's a massive job.
Well, let's get to the most complicated part, the money. The rules here seem designed to prevent any possible misuse of taxpayer funds.
That's exactly what they're for. You have 2 main types of official funds. First, appropriated funds, or APFs. And within that, you have a very specific pot of money called official representation funds, or ORF.
And ORF is for what, exactly?
ORF is specifically for extending courtesies to dignitaries and high-ranking officials to, as the document says, uphold the prestige of the United States. It's for high-level hosting.
So what can the more general APFs be used for?
They can cover things like a reception for a new commander taking over, memorial service, commander's calls, or a newcomer's orientation for the base. They can even pay for flowers or a wreath for a deceased service member.
Okay, but what if you're having an event where people need to chip in, like a holiday party or something?
That's where unofficial funds come in. Specifically, Unit Unofficial Activity Funds, or UUAs. That's the money collected from attendees, like a ticket price.
And there's a huge rule here about how you collect that money.
A hard and fast rule. You can never process that money through someone's personal bank account, ever. It's to avoid any hint of commingling funds.
So the protocol office has to set up its own account.
Yes, a formal SOCL committee account or a designated electronic payment account that belongs to the office, not a person. And they're encouraged to use electronic payments now, and the office can even cover the small transaction fees.
Now, this rule about double recovery is fascinating. It's about a guest's per diem for meals, M&IE.
Right, M&IE stands for meals and incidental expenses. If a visitor is on official travel, the government gives them a daily allowance for food.
And the double recovery rule is to stop them from getting that allowance and a free meal from the government.
Exactly. So let's say a visiting colonel is coming to your formal dinner. They're on travel orders, so they're getting M&IE. They must use their own money to pay for their ticket to the dinner. By paying, they can then go back and claim their full M&IE allowance on their travel voucher because the government didn't technically provide them a meal.
So if the meal was free, paid for by APFs, they'd have to deduct that meal from their per diem claim.
Correct, which is a hassle.
Yeah.
This way, it keeps the accounting clean, the guest pays, the guest gets fully reimbursed, no double dipping.
That is a masterclass in bureaucratic logic. Okay, what about gifts? Giving and receiving them is also tightly controlled.
Very. If you're using ORF funds to give a gift, say to a visiting official, there's a cap of $100 per event.
And when you're on the receiving end?
You're bound by federal ethics rules. Generally, you can't accept gifts from contractors or other federal entities worth more than $20 per visit, or more than $50 total from one person in a calendar year.
That is incredibly restrictive. But what about gifts from foreign governments? Those can be really valuable.
Foreign gifts are a different category. If the gift is of minimal value, which is currently set at $480 or less, the recipient can accept it and keep it.
But if it's worth more than that?
Then it's considered a gift to the U.S. government.
Bro.
It has to be accepted on behalf of the DAF. The process is complex. It has to be coordinated through the Secretary of the Air Force's office and the State Department to figure out where it goes, usually for official display somewhere.
And finally, let's talk about getting distinguished visitors, or DVs, from place to place.
For the highest level folks, presidential appointees, generals, senior executive service members, they often use military airlift or MilAir. It's a formal request process.
And the rules for spouse travel? I feel like this is where a lot of misconceptions are. They're super rigid, right?
Incredibly rigid, and for good reason. To avoid any appearance of misusing government resources. A spouse can only travel on government transport if two things are true at the same time.
Okay, what are they?
First, their presence has to be an official requirement for the event's success. And second, the spouse has to actually participate in that official event.
So if a general is flying to a conference, their spouse can't just tag along for a vacation.
Absolutely not. Separate side trips for shopping or sightseeing are explicitly forbidden on government transportation. The spouse's travel has to be directly tied to the official mission.
So all of these rules, the status, the funding, the visual code, it all comes together in the actual scripted event. And let's start with what people wear, the attire. Because you mentioned ambiguity is the enemy here.
It is. Ambiguity on a dress code is seen as disrespectful. The host has to be crystal clear on the invitation. So you'll never see terms like smart casual or the one everyone hates, black tie optional.
Why is black tie optional so bad? It seems helpful.
It creates chaos. If it's optional, some people show up in a tuxedo or mess dress and others are in a suit. It ruins the uniform look and feel of a formal event. The instruction says you have to use clear, standardized terms. Black tie, formal, semi-formal, business, and so on.
And the military uniform has to match the civilian equivalent perfectly.
Perfectly. If the invitation says formal dress, for an officer that means mess dress uniform. For a civilian, it means a tuxedo or a formal gown. It leaves no room for guessing.
Okay, invitations and seating. It's mostly electronic now, sent out a few weeks in advance. But seating really shows the difference between being precise and being efficient.
It does. For a small dinner or for the head table, you use place cards. Those little 2 by 3.5 inch cards to tell you exactly which chair is yours.
And the name on it has to be written a certain way?
Yes. It has to use the spoken title and last name. General Smith, not John Smith.
But at a huge military ball with hundreds of people, you can't assign every single seat. That would be a nightmare.
A logistical impossibility. That's where they use Yasa cards. You are seated at. The Yasa card just has your name and your table number. You pick it up when you check in, you go to your assigned table, and then you can pick any seat you want at that table. It gets people seated much faster.
Let's get into the big ceremonies. The change of command, or kasi. What is its fundamental purpose?
It is an official, required ceremony. It's there so that the subordinates can formally witness the transfer of command authority from one person to another. It's all about honoring the incoming commander.
And there's a strict rule about retirement ceremonies for the outgoing commander.
Very strict. The retirement ceremony can happen on the same day, but it cannot be paid for with official funds, and it must take place after the change of command. The transfer of authority is always the priority.
And there are some ceremonies that are just not allowed.
That's right. The DAA is clear. There is no such thing as a relinquishment of command ceremony. It's not an approved event, so it gets no official funding or support. It just doesn't exist in the rulebook.
What if you have both Air Force and Space Force leaders in the ceremony? How do you handle the flags and music?
If the official party is mixed, you have to post both the USAF and the USSF flags. But for the music, the service song that gets played is determined by the service of the honoree. Usually that's the person the ceremony is for.
Okay, let's talk about the ceremonies for remembrance. The POWMIA and Fallen Warrior ceremonies. The symbolism of the POWMIA table it's incredibly detailed.
It is. Every single item on that table tells a part of the story. The table is round to show the nation's everlasting concern. The clock is white for the purity of their motives in serving.
And the single red rose.
The red rose represents the life of each of the missing and the hope of their families.
And the other items symbolize the hardship.
They do. The red ribbon on the vase symbolizes the determination to find them. There's a slice of lemon on the plate for their bitter fate, a pinch of salt for the tears of their families. The glass is inverted because they can't share in the toast, and the chair is empty because they are not here.
And there's a very strict rule about the music for this ceremony. No taps.
Absolutely no taps. And the reason it's so important, taps symbolizes death. For a POWMIA ceremony where the individuals are not declared deceased, playing taps would be completely inappropriate.
But the Fallen Warrior ceremony, that's different.
That is different. That ceremony is for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. It's often represented by a single empty chair at unit memorials. It's a way to honor the fallen within their unit, separate from the official funeral honors.
And finally, we get to the most traditional, most ritualized military social event of all. The dining in and dining out. The mess.
These events have a history that goes back centuries to Viking mead halls and Roman legion dinners. The whole point is to build camaraderie, that esprit de corps.
And the difference is simple. Dining in is just for members of the unit.
Right, and dining out includes spouses and guests.
The dress code is formal, but there's a modern version too.
A traditional mess is mess dress or tuxedo. But they also have the combat dining in, where you wear your OCP uniform or flight suit, and guests wear casual clothes. It's a more relaxed take on the tradition.
The event is run by the president of the mess. But what about the vice president? They're usually the most junior officer, right?
Traditionally, yes. And their job is critical. They manage the flow, lead toasts, and basically enforce the rules. But, crucially, the vice president is never seated at the head table. They sit at the complete opposite end of the room, facing the president.
That physical distance is symbolic.
It is. It represents the span of the chain of command, from most senior to most junior.
And the central feature of the whole thing, the enforcement mechanism, is the famous grog bowl.
Ah, the grog, yes. If you break a rule of the mess, the president sends you to the grog bowl. And the procedure for this is not optional. It is a mandatory ritual.
Okay, break it down for us. What do you have to do?
First, you salute the president. Then you fill your cup from the grog bowl, which is usually a terrible mix of liquids. You turn back to the president, you toast to the mess, and then you have to drain the entire cup without it leaving your lips. And then you place the empty cup upside down on your head to prove it's empty. Then you salute the president one more time and you return to your seat.
Wow, that is a process. It sounds designed to make sure you don't break the rules again.
That is precisely the point. It's about shared tradition and group cohesion, and the rules themselves are just as formal. Thou shalt participate in all toasts. Thou shalt not bring a cocktail into the mess.
And the most famous one, the one about basic human needs.
Ah, yes. Thou shalt not leave the mess whilst convened.
Seriously, you can't leave to go to the bathroom.
Not without permission from the president. The idea is that the ceremony of the mess is sacred time. For that period, military protocol overrides all calls of nature. If you break the rule, you're almost certainly making a trip to the grog bowl when you get back. It's an extreme way to reinforce the focus on the group.
So we started this deep dive looking at die-off regulations, and we somehow ended up at the grog bowl and rules about bathroom breaks. I mean, we've covered this huge scope from big picture funding decisions
Right, like ORF and M&IE and avoiding double recovery.
down to the tiniest details, like placing the stars of the flag over the left shoulder or what a lemon slice means on a table.
And what it all shows is that DAF Protocol is this incredibly thorough, documented system. It's designed to remove all ambiguity, whether you're dealing with Space Force technology or planning a dinner for a foreign dignitary.
The takeaway here for you is that this level of detail isn't just bureaucracy for its own sake. It is the real-world manifestation of order, respect, and professionalism in the military.
It really is. And it's fascinating, isn't it, how an organization so focused on the future, on technology, holds on to these traditions that are in some cases ancient. They're codifying rules for electronic payments right next to rules for a social event that has its roots in Roman legions.
So here's the final thought we want to leave you with. The Department of the Air Force insists on these forms of honor and respect that are, in some ways, thousands of years old, even as its mission is literally rocketing into space. So think about this. What are those essential, unchanging elements of human honor that require such a precise, codified structure? And how does maintaining these ancient forms actually serve the future mission of keeping peace in that final frontier? Something to consider next time you see a flag flying.